Good morning. Welcome to Unity, both virtually and here in this room. The message of Michael's song, "Don't be afraid, for you are love, and you are loved." This month, we've been looking at the power of imagination, and more specifically, spiritual imagination. We all have imagination that is constantly in operation, but this month we want to become a little bit more conscious of what imaginations we're using. Last time I talked was the end of March, and at that time, that was the first time we had had a service here in terms of an empty facility, an empty sanctuary. We had been 2 weeks into the shutdown, and a lot had transpired at that time. And now, 3 months later, we have even more things transpiring. And our speakers this month have addressed a lot of what we're going through physically and emotionally and spiritually. Jeff started off this month. Val-Ann, Evie O'Leary last week, all kind of looking at this idea of spiritual imagination from different angles. At the time I said a lot has happened, and of course, and I said, what is it that is being asked of us at this time? And really I don't think it's changed. At that time I said it's time to love, time to care, a time to be compassionate. It's a time to breathe when we find ourselves tightening up with fear and anxiety, to relax, to let go, to recenter in our truth, that even though we take the mindful steps to keep each other safe, we can also at that point then turn it over and know that we're being cared for and guided. It's also a time to remember who we are. And that's what we're here for each Sunday. We come here to help remind each other of the truth of what we are, who we are. And also to feel that truth. When we go through our affirmations and our prayers, it's an opportunity not only to hold it in your mind, but to allow it to drop down into our hearts so that we start to resonate with those truths. And we start to think and feel in terms of those truths of who we are. I think Unity has two important gifts. It probably has many more, but there's two that I want to touch upon for this moment. One is the practical nature and the practical focus of Unity. I think this is extremely important. Unity is not about just a philosophy and an intellectual study and pursuit. It's also providing many opportunities for us to integrate and take these ideas that we're working with and take them deeper into ourselves so they become more and more an actual reality in our imagination and in our lives. We had a booklet before Christmas in terms of how to prepare for Advent. And then we had the fasting and feasting booklet that was a way to prepare for Easter in a more conscious way in terms of fasting from the things that are no longer serving us, those old beliefs, those beliefs oftentimes of our society, and to be able to refocus on what we want to hold as true. And now this past month, although all these books are useful all the time, at this time we have Fearless Living. Like Linda said, we're being confronted constantly by our fears. by our anxieties and the fears of others. And so this is a great opportunity for us to become aware how to work with that in a more conscious way and not just be a reactive being. Now, the things that we study and talk about, the purpose is not to change the world. These things are not going to change what you came here to experience. We each have an individual journey, and those journeys are important because it comes from love, and it's about the things that you and I individually would like to look at and heal within ourselves. But these tools, as we take them deeper and deeper within our being, allow us to experience our lives differently, to allow us to experience the things that we have to encounter in a gentler way as our perceptions about them change. The other focus of unity that is extremely powerful is that there is only one. In this world, there's infinite ideas, infinite possibilities. And spirituality becomes the same way. It can become very, very scattered. But there's really only one truth. That there is only one. That it is love. And that you are a part of it. But why is this important? Why is spirituality important? Why are these ideas important? They're important because we, at this point in time, in consciousness, are separate from that oneness. And so that leaves us in a constant state of isolation, pain, suffering, loneliness. And so we're occupied with trying to figure out how to keep that at bay. And so we get involved with all kinds of activities and each other in an attempt to try to fill that emptiness. Let me read. This comes from a mystical writing. Only one religion in this world, the religion of love. Love of the soul for its own origin, for its own father. And so as long as we live in separation from ourself, there's always going to be that sense of emptiness. And nothing can fill that in terms of the physical reality. Buddha talked about that also. Buddha talked about don't try to find your happiness in things that are in constant state of change and flux. Things that rust, things that die, things that deteriorate. And that's the reality of this particular world that we live in. And this is why it's referred to as a dream. Because everything is very short-lived. It kind of comes and goes. It's like you're in the dream at night, and then you wake up and it's gone. And then all of a sudden you dream again and it's gone. So that's one of the reasons there's a dynamic to that that's like a dream. And that's why they refer to it as an illusion and as a dream. And also because it's not the reality that you come from, and that is where your home is. The spirit is eternal. It's changeless. In this reality, there's constant change. You can never be totally at peace because there's another change around the corner. And sometimes when these changes happen like they're happening now, where they're kind of beyond our fear imagination, and it becomes very, very uncomfortable. The changes are happening so quickly. And if our peace is based on trying to keep that in control, we'll never be in peace. From that same writing, it says, "Follow the path which leads back to the Father. The Lord is within every one of us. The path is within every one of us. There's no being on this planet that is not on the same path as us. Every being is a spiritual being. And its home is in that oneness of their truth. Now, one thing here is I would like to bring up just for a second is that from this vantage point, from this consciousness of our mind of duality, the mind of personality, the mind of separation, there's no way that we can prove that there's a God. It's sort of like, you know that a small child cannot understand certain concepts because its consciousness hasn't grown, hasn't expanded to be able to take that in and understand that. And so from the mind that we live in, we're not able to prove that there's a God. It only comes as we journey inwards, like it was just saying, towards our home. In the process of moving inwards, slowly and slowly our consciousness changes and we're able to perceive more and more. I happened to pull a card out of a stack of cards I have that are by a group of beings called Abraham. And the card I pulled up said, "You are not here to fix anything because nothing is broken." And I go, "What? You mean we have this pandemic? Okay, we have issues of race and judgment. We have tremendous issues with our relationship to our environment, etc., etc. And yet, it said, you're not here to fix anything because nothing is broken. Everything is continually changing and expanding." At the time of Jesus, they were under Roman occupation. They were under the control of an invading army. I imagine your life could be taken at a whim. I imagine that things were very, very difficult. I can't imagine living under an occupied force. That would really definitely push my buttons. And yet, in the New Testament, I think it's very, very difficult to tell that that was even going on. I don't recall that Jesus was really focusing on changing the political situation or rebelling against the situation at hand. He didn't even address it. And last week, Evie read to us. It was a situation where after the feeding of the multitudes that came to listen to Jesus talk, they were, he fed them and cared for them, and he was obviously very charismatic, and they thought, this is the king we've been waiting for. And so they asked him, would you be our king? And Evie read this. It goes, "My children, you're so short-sighted and material-minded. How many times have I told you that my kingdom," and I'm going to put in my words, "your kingdom is not of this world." And I've noticed other mystics also writing at times of tremendous turmoil and pain and fear. You cannot tell that those things are going on. They do not address those things. In that prodigal son story, where the son goes out from the father, in truth, we never left the father's mind. We're journeying out into a world of choice, of opposites, of good and bad, love and hate, lack and abundance. It's a world, the mind of duality. And that's the nature of that world. One of its laws is that dynamic of duality, plus and minus. And so, like I was saying, it's a world of choice. And so that child had a chance to experience his choices. But this was the choices of the child. It's like a parent sending your own child outside to play. Your child is going to have all kinds of experiences, and it's important for its growth. But you don't run out there and hover over it, trying to protect it. You know it's an important aspect of its whole dynamic of growing. And yet, that child has never left your mind and your heart. And so that's the truth of who we are also. And in that story, that the world of that mind of duality is not being created by God. That's the nature of that particular world, and also the choices that we make while we're in it. But that world is not judged. It has a purpose. But at the same time, it's not our true home. You are loving beings. The core of who all of you are is love and compassion. And because of that, we want to have that truth that we know, that love, that compassion. We want it to be our world. And yet, it's not going to happen here. That's not the purpose. That's why nothing is broken. This is a place of choices and a place to experience its dynamics. But it's not of the spirit. You are a spiritual being. You're not your body. The body is just so that we can experience this and experience the choices. But it's not who we are. We are eternal. You've heard the saying, be in the world, but not be of it. And yet at the same time, we need to do it in love. Because that's the basic reality. That's the one. All is love. So the mind of duality here constantly wants to think, well, if one thing is good, the other thing has to be bad. No. We have to learn how to do this. We have to learn to love this reality, but at the same time know that it's not the source of our happiness. So we put on the mask. We play our roles. We be the mothers, we be the fathers, we be the brothers, we play the sisters. We play them as best we can. But it's still not our truth, nor is it the truth of every person that we meet. So each day, we have an opportunity to stop and to reimagine who we are. To fast from those old choices that can hurt us and hurt others. Fasting from the old beliefs and learning to take more deeply the things that we talk about, the truths that we know. From Rumi, a mystic, out beyond the ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. So there is a reality beyond this one that our minds tell us. There is a world beyond having to judge anything. And this, he says, I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. This is where our home is. This is where the peace is. Because there is only one. There's changelessness. And you're home and complete and wholeness in who we are. Thank you. So let's take a moment to be in prayer. Prayer is one of the ways we have of sort of stopping ourselves and reimagining what we want to choose, choosing more consciously. So when I went to the grocery store the first 2 times, I found myself forgetting who I was. I tried to be in control and I found myself creating tremendous tension within myself. On the third time, fortunately, I was able to wake up and re-look at what I was doing. Still put on the mask, but then I was able to stop and kind of be able to go into prayer and to know that I'm not separate from anyone, that I don't need to be afraid or try to control, that I can see love going before me, smoothing the way, that I could relax and still wear my mask and still be careful with each other. And so now let's just, as we go in, let's just gently close our eyes and breathe, be with that breath. A tool that we have to allow us to kind of gently come down from the mind of ideas, the fears that might be there, the anxieties, the unknowns, and just gently breathing into this moment, into our hearts, gently opening to the truth that we are love and compassion. Feeling that love for ourselves. Allowing that love to flow into us through that heart of oneness, and to every atom and cell of our being. Forgiving ourselves for pushing these bodies, and to love that body for all that it does for us, for all that it has given us. And then as we continue to breathe and relax, we allow ourselves to open, to expand our boundaries, and to open to the truth of our oneness. There is only one presence and one power. The all-loving goodness of God. And we relax into that truth of who we are. That we return from the far country. That then in the mind and the heart of the oneness of love, we have never been gone. We've never been judged. There is nothing to be forgiven. For we are a part of the Father, part of the Mother. We are one. As spiritual beings, we are the Christ. We are that child that is coming back. And every being on this planet, no matter what form their lessons come in, are the Christ. They may be asleep to that reality as we fall asleep. But their truth is that they are the Christ, that they are the child of the One. They are one with us. And so we open to allow and to love as we have been allowed and have been loved on our journey. And the souls in the world who feel so afraid, that feel fearful of others, that think that they are separate from love, we hold them in the oneness of our hearts, the oneness of who we are. And we allow the love that is their truth to enfold them, allowing it to come in behind that wall of fear, that wall of separation. And we ask for this for ourselves, that we be loved despite our fears. In our oneness, we are one with all that is. There is never any separation. We gently let go of any symbols in our life of lack, of less than wholeness, any belief that we could possibly be separate from the wholeness and the love and the power. We are loved. We are love. And we give thanks. Amen. Bless you.